Trevor, you played under many different coaches. Obviously, we were talking about Shanahan earlier, but then you had two in Baltimore. You had the last 2 years of Brian Billick, and then you had 2 years with John Harbaugh. Who was the toughest coach among those to play under, and who was your favorite coach to play under, or even a defensive coach that maybe a lot of people don't give the recognition to?
The physically toughest was by far Brian Billick, because his practices were long and grinding and lots of changing of periods and the running around. He'd run 5 plays there and then run 5 plays there, but he gave you a lot of time off after that. So his practices were, even call it Camp Cupcake. I was like, I've never seen a cupcake like this.
Camp Cupcake.
This is tough. That's what they called it. I was like, what? I was like, who? I was like, who? I remember that.
You sure Rex didn't give it that name?
I don't know who gave him that name. But I was like, and I remember somebody else said that too. It's like, I went to practice. Like, we never tackled at Denver. We never tackled. Like, we had one full live period every camp, and that was goal line. That was at one time you got to hit and take people to the ground when we did goal line. But when I got to Baltimore, they were like, live. I was like, wait, what? I saw Ed Reed hit Todd Heap in his knee, full speed. And I'm like, what planet is this? So the physically easiest was John Harbaugh by far and away. Because we had parts of practice we wouldn't even practice. We'd walk, they call it Wednesday walkthrough. We'd walk through on Wednesdays, the whole practice. But the most fun, I think, was different parts of the different teams, same people in different years. Like, when you're winning, it's fun. Losing sucks. So that's easy enough.
All right, moving on to the opponents, Trevor. In your career, who was the toughest quarterback you've ever faced, and also the toughest team offense you faced in your career?
Quarterback, kind of all the same a little bit. Team offense was Kansas City. That was when they had Willie Roaf and no Shields and friggin' Jamal. I forget his kid's name. The really fast one.
Jamal Charles.
Jamal Charles, but also they had the one before, the one that got hurt, Priest Holmes. Jeez.
Priest Holmes,
yeah.
So they were by far and away the offense that scared everybody.
Very, very interesting. You went to the Jets one year, and a lot of people think that you went to the Jets because Sexy Rexy went over there. He asked you to come over there and help him out with some of the young players. I'm a Jet fan. I grew up a Jet fan, and I remember you. The 1 year that you were there, I remember you. I mean, you didn't make much of a statement over there with the Jets, but you were at the end of your career. But what were your thoughts of that New York Jet team, especially the two teams which I don't think you played for, the two teams that went to the AFC title?
You played
game?
for one of them.
Oh, you played for one of them.
Yeah,
What were your?
I did play on
Oh,
that.
there you go.
I started that game.
There you go. So what were your thoughts of those Jet teams that you saw in those 2 years with Rex Ryan?
They were good. I mean, Rex was my dude. He was smart. Rex has forgotten more about football than people will ever know. You know what I mean? I think people gave Mark Sanchez a hard time. Because I know Pittsburgh went for it on fourth down in their own territory because of Mark Sanchez. Because they knew if they gave the ball back to him, we were going to the Super Bowl. So we were stunned on 4th and 8, and they went for it on the 30. I was like, what? So that tells you all you need to know. They knew they gave Mark the ball back. They weren't going to the Super Bowl. Period.
That's very interesting. So, it's crazy because as a Jet fan, I remember that game and how upset I was. And I'm not a big Mark Sanchez fan. I never was when the Jets brought him in, when they moved up with the Browns and they move up to the 5th pick to get Mark Sanchez. I didn't think when Pete Carroll came out and said about, what he said about Mark Sanchez is he wasn't ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He needed another year in college. I just didn't think the Jets, he was the right guy for the Jets. But the 2 years that the Jets made those runs, Mark Sanchez had a lot to do with those 2 runs, especially winning those 4 away games and going into New England and beating New England in New England was one of the biggest upsets in NFL history, some people say. What are your thoughts of the Jets organization kind of abolishing and banishing Mark Sanchez? I agree with you. I think the Jets organization has really turned their back on Mark Sanchez. And ever since he's left, a lot of people believe that they've turned their backs on him after all those years, the 2 great years with the New York Jets.
I don't know. It's a little bit of a, I don't know. I didn't have much history of Jets. I knew Rex. Rex was my guy. Mark Sanchez was a good quarterback, and I liked him as a person. That's really the most important thing: is do you like him as a person? And I thought he was a great person. So that was the most important thing to me, not Jets history.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is what it is in that respect. But Mark was a good dude. He was a good person. I thought he was a good quarterback. I thought he worked with the best. When a team runs the ball as much as we do, you don't really get much. I thought the whole Tim Tebow thing was a disaster,
mm-hmm.
right? So it is what it is. I like Mark. Mark's a good dude. Mark made his impact. Mark should have went to a Super Bowl again. If we stopped the Pittsburgh Steelers at 4th and 6 from the 30, the Jets won the Super Bowl that year.
I agree with you.
And Mike Tomlin knew it. So we cannot give the ball back to Mark Sanchez. That's a fact. You can say whatever you want. We cannot give the ball back to Mark Sanchez.
It's just the Jets' luck of their organization. They never get that luck, and hopefully we
always
see
hindered
that.
by the conference championship games, even in the 80s, too.
Well, before we let you go, Trevor, I wanted to start doing this with some of the athletes and some of the analysts that we are interviewing, and I'm going to ask them the same question throughout the week. Same questions I'm going to ask you. And we're going to call it the WWSRN feud. And what we're going to do is we're going to get all your answers, and we're going to compare them to every single athlete or analyst we're going to talk to and interview this week. Are you ready to do this?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, here we go. All right, first question. Who was or is your favorite player you played with or interviewed, and why?
Favorite player I interviewed. Favorite player I ever interviewed was a kid named Francis Tiafoe, who was a tennis player. He's he writing for the New York Times, and he had won a tournament called the La Petite 14 and under tournament that Rafa Nadal had won. Francis was great because Francis lived at a tennis center in College Park. Him and his twin brother. His dad was a janitor, and he was marked for greatness because serendipity. He didn't choose tennis. Tennis chose him because his father needed a job and they had nowhere to go. So him and his brother slept there many a nights, and he spent 5 years watching people play tennis until he picked up a tennis racket, and he had 5 years worth of knowledge. So he got good real fast. So today, I see him all the time now. He's on TV. He's top 40 in the world.
Yes, he is.
Francis has made millions of. Francis Tiafoe, he's made millions of dollars. Like Francis is that dude, and people hold him up around here where we live in the Mid-Atlantic. As you can make it as a professional tennis player. Yeah, well, if you're built like a DB, yeah, sure. You know what I mean? So that was my favorite.
We are talking to the great NFL superstar. I thought he was a superstar for 4 or 5 years of his career, Trevor Pryce. What player or analyst did you grow up wanting to be, and why?
I think, like everybody else, I want to be Lawrence Taylor or Walter Payton, just because I grew up in New York. I was born in New York,
Brooklyn,
but then I grew up. Yeah, but then I grew up in Florida, where football reigned supreme. So it was Lawrence Taylor because I didn't know any better.
Do you like to sleep with your underwear, pants, or sleep commando?
I sleep fully clothed, socks to sweatshirt. I can get out of my bed and go out to Target, like out of my bed. Socks, pants, and a hooded sweatshirt.
Very interesting. What is the craziest question someone asked you in an interview?
Nothing really. I mean,
you could answer the previous one that Errol just asked you.
The craziest one is what do you sleep in? That's pretty. That's like what? That's pretty cool.
All right. What coach or analyst did you? What was this? Oh, did you? Oh, this is better. What coach or analyst did you hate dealing with the most, and why?
That I hate dealing with?
Hate dealing with somebody that interviewed you, or any coach that you just hate dealing with.
Oh, the dude in Baltimore, Mike Preston. Oh my God, that dude, man. He got everybody's nerve, including mine. I don't, I don't mind you. Move back. I don't mind you knowing football. I do mind you being the authority of football for a whole fan base when they trust you and not what their eyes see. Right? Always trust your eyes. So that was pretty. He was something. When he showed up, I'm like, I gotta go.
Gotta go. Here's a good question. If you were dared to wear a dress and had to dress like a woman, what would you wear and why?
I go naked.
Go naked? Out of all the things you could dress
Fully
in,
naked.
you go naked. You go naked. Don't tell your wife that.
Fully in the nude. Whatever event we're at, I go fully nude.
Who was the most annoying player that you dealt with in the locker room, and why?
I hated all the rah-rah guys.
You hated all the rah-rah guys. Give me one.
Oh, and pick one. My thing was always, if you need people to motivate you, you need a new job. That's all. So anybody that can, this is our thing, blah, blah, blah. Get out of here, man. I'm a grown up.
Last question. Were you a mama's boy or a daddy's boy?
Kind of neither. My dad was tough and my mom was tough. I'm Jamaican. So I was kind of neither. It's kind of float to my own. And my parents let me float to my own, beat them on. As long as I was getting in trouble, then I kind of do whatever I want. And we didn't have too many rules in my house. But you just knew not to do certain things. So I was kind of neither. My sister was a daddy's little girl now. Because my dad's a soccer coach and she's a soccer player. So that was pretty obvious.
No, you couldn't play soccer. You were 6'5", 250 pounds, probably at the age of 16. I don't know if you could run up and down a soccer field.
Very well, I do. I'm very good at it.
Really? Mm-hmm. Really?
I'm very, very good at it. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, Trevor, before we let you go, why don't you let the fans get some information about you? How do they find you on Instagram? How do they find you on Twitter? Are you?
I am not on Instagram. I do have a Twitter. It's Trevor_Pryce. At Trevor_Pryce. That's it. And sure, send me questions and I'll answer them in between the baseball practice I am at now and currently missing, or in between making my TV show.
I do want to ask you one question before I let you go, and this is one question I really wanted to ask you. In 2013, you wrote a young adults book that was made into a 2016 original animated series on Netflix. Could you tell the fans a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm a very good writer. I've been all my life creating. So I came up with something. You have to write what you know. Was what any producer, Steven Spielberg would tell you, write what you know. The one thing I knew was cartoons because my kids were on the TV. So I decided to write a cartoon, and I was like, oh, what's not available? What has not been written about? And poisonous frogs hadn't been written about. So I wrote about poisonous frogs and scorpions, and it became a book. And then it became a Netflix series. Then it became a second season of a Netflix series. And then, we are doing what we do.
I know. I was reading it. It's a great thing you're doing right now, and take care of your family, and hopefully we get you on very, very soon, Trevor. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thanks, guys.